Hello everyone, I'm Annlanka, Assistant Professor of English, and I'm back with another video on a poem titled Homecoming, written by Bruce Daw. So here's an introduction to our poet Bruce Daw. He's one of Australia's most respected and influential poets. His full name is Donald Bruce Daw, is more commonly known as Bruce Daw. To see his family background, his parents lacked traditional education, and because of financial difficulties, his siblings never got to complete elementary school as they had to help out their parents. And Bruce Daw himself couldn't complete secondary school. Despite their financial difficulties, his family uh, encouraged him to write poems, seeing his interest in writing. So he helped out by working in various jobs, despite it being menial physical labor. Later, he joined the Royal Australian Air Force, and during these years, he earned to put himself through college. When we read many of his poems, we see that his poems have a rather bleak perspective on modern day society. So it is clearly understood that his poems have been influenced by his early difficult life. So the poem that we are going to look into is titled Homecoming. Homecoming by Bruce Daw is a dramatic anti-war poem that portrays the futility of war. The themes of the poem are identity and death, and this poem depicts the horror and destruction of war. So the poem is based on the Vietnam War. So you might have heard of the Vietnam War, which went on for many years, and this war is actually because of a prolonged struggle between nationalist forces attempting to unify the country of Vietnam under a communist government, and the United States, with the aid of the South Vietnamese, attempting to prevent the spread of communism, because the United States feared that communism would spread uh, like dominoes. And so they tried to prevent the spread of communism by preventing Vietnam from unifying together. So having said about the background of the poem, Homecoming is a poem written as a tribute to the return of the bodies of young Australian soldiers who had fought and died in the Vietnam War, and the lack of identity and respect that were attributed to them. So with this introduction, let us go into a line-by-line analysis of the poem. All day, day after day, they are bringing them home. They are picking them up, those they can find, and bringing them home. They are bringing them in, piled on the hulls of grants, in trucks, in convoys. They are zipping them up in green plastic bags. So here, all day, day after day, a particular act is being repeated, and that is the act of bringing them home. So who are being brought home? The bodies of the dead soldiers are being sent back to their families. So this act is going on day after day, where the live soldiers are picking up the dead soldiers, and the words, those they can find, It just reminds us that there are some who go missing in action, which will really haunt their families for the rest of their lives, not knowing what really happened to their family members. So the bodies of those soldiers that can be found are taken back to their homeland, and the soldiers who are alive are finding them, picking them up, and are carrying back their dead bodies. And they just pile the bodies on trucks and the vehicles that they use. And as they bring back the dead bodies, they are just packed and zipped up in green plastic bags. So the bags all look alike, and the bodies of the soldiers are just thrust into each bag. And then they are tagging them now in Saigon, in the mortuary coolness. They are giving them names, they are rolling them out of the deep freeze lockers. So after bringing them to the mortuary, the soldiers' dead bodies are identified. They are given names, and the name tags are fixed to their respective bodies. And after being identified and tagged, the dead soldiers are rolled out of the deep freeze lockers of the mortuary. On the tarmac at Tan Son Nhut, the noble jets are whining like hounds. They are bringing them home. So the dead bodies of the soldiers are placed on trolleys and they are being rolled out to the jet planes with their engines running, ready to take back the bodies of the soldiers to their respective homelands. And they are bringing them home. Curly heads, kinky hairs, crew cuts, balding non-coms. So this is how the soldiers are identified. Their race or gender doesn't matter. They're just identified by their physical appearance. So here Bruce Daw, he wants to make the point that there is a lack of identity for these dead soldiers. They're just referred to as curly heads or kinky hairs. And they are loaded onto the jet planes, and the jet planes take off. The planes, they are high now, high and higher over the land. The steaming Chow Mine, their shadows are tracing the blue curve of the Pacific. So the planes fly high over the land of the people whose main food is noodles. So the planes, they fly high and they fly over the Pacific Ocean. With sorrowful quick fingers, heading south, heading east. So the pilots, they take back these soldiers home with heavy hearts, and these soldiers are taken home, home, home. And the course swing upward, the old ridiculous curvatures of earth, the knuckled hills, the mangrove swamps, the desert emptiness. So the planes fly over the terrain of the Australian continent, a varied landscape. The desert emptiness could refer to the Australian outback, or it could refer to the futility of war. And the planes fly over this landscape and tilt towards the land like skiers. in graceful movements, taxiing in on the long runways. The howl of their homecoming rises, surrounding them like their last moments. So the sound made by the engines of the plane is like the announcing their last moments, arriving at their native place all together with no identity of their own. And gradually the noise of the plane fade as they move on to small towns where dogs in the frozen sunset raise muzzles in mute salute. So as these bodies are loaded into vans or other vehicles to be taken back to their homes, along the ways, the dogs by the roadside, they seem to raise their muzzles, symbolically saluting the soldiers who have sacrificed their life, and onto cities in whose wide web of suburbs telegrams tremble like leaves from a wintering tree. So even before the dead soldiers can reach their homes, telegrams announcing their death are delivered to their family members, and the telegrams tremble in the hands of the family members who receive them. They tremble with the weight of the loss of their loved young children, because these dead soldiers would have been in their late teens or their early 20s. And the spider grief swings in its bitter geometry. They are bringing them home, now too late, too early. So these soldiers have come home at last, but their homecoming, it's now too late, because it's not going to matter anymore, they're already dead. And it's too early, because it's too early for them to die. They haven't even begun to live their life. So this last line is a haunting line which reminds us of the waste of young lives for no fault of their own. So the title of this poem is Homecoming. Homecoming is usually something that one would look forward to because it's a safe haven, or it is a celebration. However, the title to this poem as Homecoming is quite ironic, because the homecoming of the dead soldiers does not bring any joy or comfort either to them or their family members, because it doesn't matter anymore. So this poem is quite a haunting poem where Bruce Dove wants to drive home the point that war is futile and the only end result of war would be death and suffering. Hope you found this presentation useful, and I have mentioned the sources that I had referred to while preparing this presentation, and I'm thankful to all these sources that are available online for our reference. And thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to this presentation. Bye everyone.